Hey there, and welcome to Game Sweet Zone, where we try to pick apart the various sounds that go into video game music. Today, we're diving into Over Shiver Mountain from Paper Mario, composed by Yuka Tsujiyoko in 2000. Ready, Jerry? Why the long face? Right. I'll let you cool off. The music speed is 201.900. Pretty specific. As usual, I imported the original into my workstation and ensured it plays instantly so that I could properly figure out the tempo. Be sure to use a metronome. As for the time signature, it isn't 4/4 but 2/4. Let me show you why. Everything falls off beat once we get there. Everything lines up perfectly with 2 beats per measure. Over Shiver Mountain uses a lot of percussion, both pitched and unpitched. The main one it uses is the Vibraphone, and variations. We're going to take the same instrument and tweak its properties for different parts. Because of this, we're going to have a lot of vibraphone channels. Get ready because this is one of our largest sections. The first vibraphone is the intro. It's the note that's heavily sustained and sits around a low frequency range. We're going to go ahead and soften the attack so that we won't get a strike sound when the vibraphone's played. We'll also increase the release time so that it takes longer to reach silence after we let go of a note. The sustain level stays at its highest as well, so that the vibraphone is at its highest volume when the note is being held. Finally, remove treble frequencies and add to the bass, and a little to the mids. The next vibraphone has similar properties. It's an arpeggio, where the notes of a chord are played sequentially. This vibraphone plays the second melody. Here are its properties. Now here's the pattern. This next one plays during the intro. Here are the settings we have for it. I also boosted the lower mids and mids, but removed a bit of the highs we added. The next part acts as an intervention during the main melody. And finally, this last one plays during the intro. It plays the same note 8 times. I like to call it a siren. I also made a mistake. I actually used a xylophone and forgot that I did. Here are the settings. It also uses the same mixer routing as the previous vibraphone, giving it the same EQ additions. Snow themes tend to work well with Sleigh Bells. Shiver Mountain just so happens to use them. Someone has kindly provided a sound font for free, as well as tons of other instrument sound fonts, which I will link in the description. We're going to go ahead and use the Sleigh Bells he uploaded for us. We'll use it according to the music, of course. I'm going to add a bit of reverb and place the notes. This instrument plays the main melody. It lies right in the mid frequencies. Our trusty Celesta matches the original's timbre just nicely, and timbre is simply the quality of a sound. However, that's not the original sound. The original is just a simple sine wave. Honestly, either one of these will work just fine, but you know what? I'll use them both. Yup, both. With that being said, here's how I set up the Celesta. I delayed its attack a bit to allow the sine wave to fulfill that job for me. The sine wave itself is just left alone. Oh, and I should also note that the pattern here is another arpeggio. The marimba is used alongside the vibraphone during the second section. Just for sound good purposes, I'll use two of them. One marimba will have more bass and mid frequencies added, while the other will have more highs and less mids. I'm also going to use the transient option provided by my VST, giving it more of a sort of woody sound. Oh, and note that their individual volumes are lowered to avoid them overtaking the vibraphone by sounding loud together. I also make the strikes get gradually softer in volume as they reach the end of their lives. Now, let's see the notes. We're still not done with the marimbas though. Remember the first marimba with more bass to it? The one we talked about 30 seconds ago? This will be used to close out the end section and transition into a loop. This is also another arpeggio. What's that, Jerry? It's actually a broken chord?
Wrong!
Okay, kidding. He's not wrong. An arpeggio is a broken chord. A broken chord is simply a chord that has its notes played individually. The distinction is that an arpeggio has them played sequentially, one after another. Anyway, here's our final pattern. Next up are the Cowbells and Agogos. These Latin percussion instruments are used in the intro. To get close to the sound we want to emulate, I decided to take a single sample from our provided sound bank and give it its own channel. Simply have it sound once by itself, save it as a WAV file, then put it in the sampler. Now middle C is the original sound, while any other note will change its pitch, which is what I want. As for the Agogos, they'll be used specifically for these sounds. Now here they are together. This is the part where we do some experimentation. I don't have a snare that sounds super close to the original.
Guess we'll have to make our own!
No! Stop! Get back in there! Sorry. Anyway, I have a general idea for how we could get this sound. First, get a normal snare drum and see what we could get out of it. After tinkering with the settings, by that, I mean moving the knobs and sliders until something happens, as well as messing around with its frequencies in our parametric EQ plugin, I got something that would give us good ground to work up from. I also increased the pitch. Next up, I decided to use a tambourine. We don't want too much of the high sound it gives us, so I used this configuration, along with further changes I made to its frequency ranges. I also checked the level and solo box under doubling, which decreased that sound even more. To end it, I increased the pitch a bit. Now, let's play them together. Sounds kind of close, right? This next change is pretty slight, but I'm also going to add a simple hi-hat. I used the previous EQ setup. I thought it'd just fill in a bit of sound. Maybe it doesn't really matter, but I put it there anyway. Now, here's our final sound. Here's the cool part about this. We don't have to manually place the notes in each channel when we need to use them. Let's just create a sample for this snare. All we have to do is remove any sort of reverb that came with the instruments to avoid limiting our sound options. Have the instruments play once and save the new pattern as a wave. Put the sample in a new channel and then you're done. We're also going to add a considerable amount of reverb to it, but not too much. Here's part 2 to our experimentation section. I hope you're ready. Jerry, stop giving me the cold shoulder. Okay, sorry. No more bad jokes. First off, I hear a sound that sounds like it slides against some surface or something. Hard for me to describe. No worries though, that's called a gyro. I decided to save this as its own sample so that I could keep it from lasting its entire long length. This is going to go under what will be our kick drum. Okay, when I think of kick drum, I think of bass. Let's just go get a bass drum, haha. We got the kind of bass drum sound we think will fit the most, so that's done. As for its envelope, I'm more so looking to have it not be as strong starting out, so I'll delay the attack. Once again, after simply messing around with the options I had, I found out that checking both boxes under doubling gives us an extra bit of sound closer to what we want. We need one more. Again, after doing nothing but looking through the percussion instruments I have, I found that the taiko mostly fits what I'm looking for. I got the note I figured was best for this. I increased a bit of the highs and mids, but mostly increased the bass. I also decreased the pitch as much as I could. Now, let's play them all together. Awesome. Do the same as we did with the snare and make it its own sample, taking care to remove any preset reverb first. Now, we will put it in a new channel and use it. We will apply reverb to that channel. At long last, here are the drum patterns for Over Shiver Mountain. Oh jeez, how'd you do all that? I can't just listen to something and instantly think of what the sound is, or how to get it. Well, neither do I. I mean, unless it's really simple, I guess. Sure, sound design can get pretty complicated, but I suppose it all just comes down with experience of knowing what does what, and how you get that. For example, the more you get used to using so many instruments to cover music, the more you'll just get used to things and have a general idea of what sounds like what, so that you can have an easier time replicating sounds. Hope you enjoyed my motivational speech, because I spent an extra week trying to figure this one out and failed. If I figure it out eventually, it gets a separate video, but I'm sorry, this one is kind of weird. I'm going to call that the shooting star sound. It's present in pieces such as Shooting Star Summit and Starborn Valley. I will, however, tell you what I think it most likely is. Through some desperate measures to figure this out, I found a Paper Mario sound font that has a sound. It's listed under what's called a pad sweep. Let's break this down. A pad is a chord or tone that contributes to the background of a piece, or its atmosphere. I am thinking that the pad sound you're hearing is what's on top of the sweep, which I'll get to. A sweep is basically white noise with frequencies sweeped at different cutoffs. I am thinking that the sweep is what's under the pad. The only major key to figuring out the sound, I'm guessing, is by figuring out the pad part itself. Once that's accomplished, put it over the sweep at the closest pitch that matches the original's middle C. From there, save it as a sample so that the entire thing changes pitch when you play different notes. That will also change the pitch of the white noise, which wouldn't happen if we just placed it at different notes in its original form. Anyway, since we didn't figure this out, we will just use one I found from a Paper Mario folder full of over 900 sound files, because I just so conveniently used this before trying to figure out anything in the first place. I have suffered a tremendous grief. Does this please you? Almost done. Now, the Glockenspiel is a really high-pitched percussion that's used with our Vibraphone. It's kinda like a counter melody, which is a melody that plays alongside the main one. That's essentially the last of our cover. We can still do a little more though. Let's add a little bit of more character. Shiver Mountain connects to Shiver City and Starborn Valley. This theme uses the star sound also present in Starborn Valley. How about we connect the two themes together? I'll use the Glockenspiel here, since I find it to be the most fitting way to add to the theme without dramatically changing its direction. I'm going to place two snippets of notes from Starborn Valley into the two sections that the main melody plays in. That's a leitmotif in which a reoccurring idea, situation, or character is represented in a musical piece. Oh, and the notes seem to fit well into this key, which is also helpful so we don't need to alter the original notes. Now, let's play them side by side. To close off our piece, we will add one more instrument to contribute to our transition, a high-pitched and sustained violin. I decreased the mids and increased the highs. I also delayed the attack to the maximum to let it slowly rise in. To end the piece, we will simply fade out the volume on the next loop via the master channel, which controls the music as a whole. Here's the way I have my volume set up. There are the knobs on the right. Volume automation was set up for the Cowbells and Agogos, so that they fade out when they reach the main melody. That was my way of making its disappearance more natural. I also gave the violin a fade in and fade out. As for panning, I slightly panned the two marimbas in opposite directions. Percussion and main instruments are centered as usual. The vibraphone arpeggio in the intro is panned how it is played. Right, mid-right, mid-left, left, and then reverse. The sustained vibraphone that plays two notes starts out right, then goes left. As for the extra Glockenspiel patterns, I panned them by their sound. Right left until it ends right. A similar pattern occurs for the second one. It alternates between right and left before going further left. We also make sure to center it for the upcoming counter melody. Finally, the high violin slowly transitions between left and right. We finally covered Shiver Mountain. My apologies that it took so long, but it's finally done. It's been fun. As usual, if you have suggestions for what you want to see next, feel free to let me know. Other than that, if you'd like to hear this on loop, there's a link in the description, but we'll be playing it once. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube, you lazy annotation murdering monsters.